Thank you. Welcome everyone to this webinar hosted by the Academy of International Extended Reality. I hope everyone that is joining today is safe and sound from their isolation at home. We will be shortly joined by our guests for this evening or for this webinar, which will be talking about their background and their insight into how you can best optimize your nomination for the VR Awards this year. So I am actually going to be spending a little bit of time to begin with for the first 15 to 20 minutes or so, talking through specifically the advice from the Academy, information that we have seen based on previous years, information that we know should be able to help you directly with your nominations. So we don't have much time for this webinar today. So what I'm going to be doing is specifically focusing on the things that are going to help you best. And then we'll dive straight into our guests today who will be able to provide their kind of direct insight. So let's just dive straight in, I guess. Let me just pop myself up there for you. There we go. So for this particular briefing, first of all, if you don't know already, the VR Awards is hosted and organized directly by the Academy of International Extended Reality. So the group itself is made up of various different organizations and different people with one goal to be able to steer forward the future of our industry, being able to interact directly with industry and different organizations and bodies. We're not-for-profit organizations, so all the proceeds that we collect through the VR Awards go directly back into all of the work that we're doing at the Academy. But hey, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because if you want to find out more about that, you can go on our website and see some more on that afterwards. So let's dive in. So I actually have a few different things. People who may have joined us for the previous webinar, this first initial part is going to be me recapping a few things. So I like to include little things from our actual previous nominees and things, which should hopefully give you a bit of inspiration from a marketing perspective as well, moving forward. But this was a fantastic tweet. Our team loved to be able to see all of the different materials and different content that goes forward through all of this. But let's start off with the timeline so you guys are all aware of where we're heading. So our nominations are open right now, so you can register. A key important thing to note is that you can register the nomination now, then you'll be given access to the online portal to be able to complete your nomination at any point during the nominations period. So you can register now and then complete later. So we've done a first briefing webinar. We're now on our second briefing webinar. This one with our two different guests who should hopefully be able to provide some different insight. But moving further down the line, we actually will close our nominations on the 21st of May. So it's very important. Every year we get tons and tons of people contact us directly, literally on the day saying, hey, we need this extended. Hey, can we do this? Please, can you do this? So my advice to you is try and get that information in as soon as possible so you're not stressing yourself out for that. Our finalists will be announced on the 9th of July. We don't contact you prior to the announcement, so we will. You'll be able to find out the information directly on the day when it goes live on the website. Last year, the website actually had far too much traffic at the same time, which meant we've had to upgrade our servers this year to make sure we handle all of you coming on board and all of the different industry looking to find out who are the finalists. One interesting thing to note is we will host a Pacific webinar just for our finalists, which you'll be invited to, so that you can have additional information from a marketing and PR sense and also next steps. So we'll be providing additional advice in that finalist briefing webinar, which should hopefully be able to give you some advice on how you can maximize the opportunity that you have. So then, judging period, we do all of our judging online, and we, in previous to COVID, we would have physical judging locations in various different cities across the world. We're currently reviewing how we're going to approach that, working with various different infrastructure groups to ensure that judges can actually try the experiences at home as well. So rest assured, a solution will be presented on that, which means we will need keys and access to the experiences themselves, not just the written content. And then we have the big night, or this year it'll be the big virtual day / night, where there'll be various different activities going on through a actual virtual platform, and then also a virtual production of the entire show. Those of you who are familiar and have followed us for the previous years of the show will know that we like to hold a very high standard of quality to what we do here. So I'm sure that all of you will be very excited to see how that works on the night. We will still be doing various physical attributes to it with different studio settings, and also will be shipping out the trophies and awards and stuff to all of our winners as well. But let's go into the meat of it. And I've only got a very small allotted time, because I know I'm not particularly the one that you want to hear from the most. But we have various different categories which are obviously going to be of interest to various different people, from hardware through to actual out-of-home entertainment and healthcare and all of these different sectors. The great thing is that you can nominate for multiple categories and multiple projects. It's usually we have different companies will submit between 1 to 4 applications, depending on what kind of projects they have going on. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So it's up to you to decide based on the criteria that you'll find in the entry kit. If you don't have access to the entry kit, then I will advise you to download that as soon as possible. If you haven't, if you don't know where that is, we will send you a link to that because it has the specific criteria on that. You'll also find all the criteria online, and prior to purchasing your nomination and putting that through, you'll also be able to see the specific details for that as well. So take the time to take a look at that. Our team are able to answer any questions that our FAQ and also the pack don't answer. So you should be able to very quickly see which category you'll fit into. This is a lovely photo from Vision, who are one of our 2018 award winners. Again, the team here absolutely love being able to see everyone who is involved in the project. And this year, we actually hope that we'll be able to see even more people get involved, given that it's going to be in a virtual setting as well, which means there is no limit to the amount of team that can join you for the night. So let's just run through very, very quickly. And I apologize if I'm going through this too quickly for some. There will be a copy of this as well that we will be editing in a shortened down version, so it won't go through everything, but if you wanted to view that, you can. There's a few key things here. If you were to process a nomination now, you have plenty of time to be able to perfect that. So I'm sure that our guests for this particular webinar will be able to guide on their advice and how they approached the nominations and materials and things like that. But there's a few key things which really kind of stick out. You can nominate yourself or on behalf of a client. Usually what ends up happening is especially for agencies, if they've worked with a company to make it, they will collaborate on that particular nomination, but one person of that will put that through. Make sure you communicate with your clients if you're doing that, so that you can kind of maximize that. Again, you can nominate multiple projects, as I mentioned before. And also you can submit a unreleased project at this point in time, providing it is released by the 1st of July. This is an important kind of aspect because we want to make sure that our judges can actually view the materials and can also, it's a tangible released project. We don't really work with work in progresses or things that are not kind of ready for the client or for public consumption or for that internal distribution that you have. With that as well, looking at kind of some of the notes that I have on this, it's when it comes to keys and access to builds, there's various different ways that you can actually approach that. Usually, if it's hosted on a platform like Steam or Oculus, then you can just provide us the keys or the actual dev or access through the dev distribution channels. If it's a actual application and direct installation that you have, then we'll ask for either a Google Drive or Dropbox or WeTransfer link to be able to access that. All of our judges that come on board of this agree to our terms and conditions, which includes an NDA in that. So all of the information that is shared with us is private to the entire nominations perspective. An important aspect is making sure that you also have a internal champion selected within your company who manages the entire process, so that you can appoint representatives or people from your team that you would like to be there during the actual ceremony and during the show to be able to enjoy that aspect. Likewise, we'll go over this in a bit more detail in our actual finalist briefing, but there will be various different advice this year, different from previous years, on how to prepare for acceptance of your award. We will be asking all finalists to produce a video of acceptance and stuff in preparation for all of the things, in addition to some of the virtualization that we have going on, but that will be processed more clearly within our actual finalist kind of briefing. Again, I told you, I'm going to sprinkle these in because our team get very excited when we see how excited you get. So food for thought when it comes to your actual media and marketing around this. So I'm not gonna. A lot of this is self-explanatory from this perspective. So I'm not going to focus too much specifically on this, because hopefully you'll be able to get the gist of it. What I will particularly focus on is definitely the project release dates. Check that your project falls within those guidelines. The VR Awards is the 4th International VR Awards, so we base it on this timeline that we work with. I will actually just move straight on to these two, which are the most important from my point of view. Your judge's statement is your opportunity to really go in and really focus on the elements that matter most to you, that don't fall within the specific points that we talk about. Because when it comes to marketing applications, we will ask questions around, ROI and some of the actual goals for the marketing campaigns. But the judge's statement is where you're free to express how you want to express your project. There's important things to note here is that from my point of view and our team's point of view, we don't go in and adapt or change anything to do with your applications, only the administration of processing it. So make sure you check it back with your team for very simple things which you might not think about, just like spelling, grammar, making sure that your information is simple and cohesive. Remember, these judges will be going through various different projects. So my advice on this, and there'll probably be different advice from our other different people that are involved in this, but my advice is write your initial draft, maybe off of our system, go through that on a collaborative Google Doc drive or something like that, so that your entire team can adapt and go through and then put the final product once you're ready for that into the judges' statements and these things. My last final advice, and this is why this is on my second screen, is because supporting materials matter so much. And sometimes we get applications where someone only puts in maybe one screenshot or maybe one very small thing. Your supporting materials is your opportunity to go beyond what you can write. So what I would be recommending to you from the Academy's perspective is include things like videos. If you have case studies, include those. If you have testimonials from people who've tried those things, include those. We've even had in the past nominations that tend to do very well, where people have actually videoed themselves talking to the judges around their project, talking through various aspects of it with actual video footage of that. Again, that's optional. All of this particular stuff is optional, but if you want to maximize your application, then those are some of the things that I would thoroughly recommend for you. Likewise, any documents, don't even just think about videos or photos. What you can look at is things like proof of concepts, maybe patents, maybe things that you've worked on, maybe particular structure of things. We've had PDFs come through where people have drilled down on some things. Again, all optional. Only you will be able to determine if you feel like you've got enough information there. But don't go overboard. And I know this is maybe contrary to what I'm saying here, but when you think about the materials that you're submitting, everything needs to have a purpose. So think about the purpose behind what you're submitting, what you're putting forward, so that it can have maximum opportunity for you. Again, these were from kind of flight school. Not all of their team was able to join us in London when we hosted the previous show. But you can see here that some of their devs were actually all watching and cheering on from their kind of HQ in Texas as well. So I'm going to very quickly just quick fire my advice based on some of the other things. Take time, understand the submission criteria. We try and lay it out for you. If you don't understand it from the website, you can contact our team. We won't be able to advise specifically on your application or the content that you submit, but what we will be able to advise on is the criteria, the submission, all of the things that we talk about in this webinar, but we won't be able to comment directly on your application or or make amendments or advice on that. So please bear that in mind. Again, speak to the judges directly. Everyone that's involved in this process is a human being. So, you have the opportunity to be able to talk to them like they are. What I would like to say is focus on the quality of your content. It's not about writing a dissertation on this. Everyone is busy as well. So go through and refine that. Add the support materials. I don't have to go on that again, but I'm going to bang on about that because it pains me when I see some nominations don't come through with that. And bespoke materials do help. This is one that gets often overlooked within teams, and I guess it's one that I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of and really focuses on. Internal communication on this is important. You won't believe the amount of nominations that we have come through each year where maybe someone from the marketing department or maybe an external agency has submitted that and then they disappear. The company in the nomination is there, but make sure you think about future proofing the process on this, because at the end of the day, it is an investment for you. We want to make sure you maximize the marketing potential that you can get from this. And we want to make sure that you're recognized for all of the hard work that you're doing. So if you're working alone on this project, I would advise you to make sure that you speak to other people within your team so that they can be aware of the process and gain some kind of knowledge with that as well. It means that if you end up leaving the company or if something happens to the project or things like that, then someone else is able to overtake that internally. So hopefully that helps on that basis. Again, this here was the ILMX trophy for Experience of the Year. We like to customize all of our trophies for our winners with the key artwork from the projects themselves. So again, submit good supporting materials and we'll make sure the good key artwork is on there as well. But anyway, that's enough from me. What I would like to do now is be able to hand over to our other guests that are part of this. So, Noni, are you there? I can see.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just muted. Sorry.
No worries. So I'll just, I guess I'll hand the floor over to you based on kind of your experience with the awards and some of your advice that you would provide.
Yeah, I think that you are very, very thorough, more thorough than anybody I've ever experienced in an awards nomination process. And I have to say, you guys are extremely organized. You know, we were thrilled to win, given also that we were competing against really high quality individuals and projects, so and companies. And that was also really thrilling to know that the quality of what we were providing was reviewed carefully and allowed us to really show our competitive advantage and the quality of what we were submitting. So that was a big deal. And I think that that's something which you can't discount, because you know, you find yourself, and it's something like this where you get some pretty superior projects competing. So that's one thing I want to say that I found to be unique in this experience, was really the great judging and the thoroughness. And you know, I know sometimes when you do these kind of applications, they can be pretty detailed and they can feel a bit rigorous sometimes. But you'll find when you do this kind of particular submission, that not only does it help you hone your message, but you're able to take the material and apply it to other strategic efforts. So that's also something which I think makes the process, you know, estimable. So that's, you know, those are kind of the major points that I want to make. I really just also say that, you know, your team was really great about staying with us through the process and keeping us updated, and ultimately really encouraging us when we weren't sure, you know, on certain steps. So obviously being winner was really fabulous, and I wasn't able to be there, so that didn't make the celebration any less fun. So that's the last thing I'll say about like attending virtually. Yeah, it's a little bit not quite where you want to go, but for us, you know, Reach.Love has been a labor of literally of love. The idea that, you know, this is clearly, we're already moving into flat virtual gatherings like we are having one right now, but more and more people are going to be moving into dimensionalized space, and they're going to want to make good content. And that's why we designed Reach.Love, because it's so hard to make stuff in Unity and Unreal still. I just, you know, felt really proud that this was recognized, that we were the next step, the next bridge to that future. When we won, even though I couldn't be there, it was really fun. So saying that even though you have to go to a virtual conference in some ways, it's really appropriate to our medium. That makes sense? The questions?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Thanks. I guess it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective of when it comes to the nominations process, and I guess things that you feel would be useful for people to be able to focus on, particularly, you know, when there is a lot of time spent by internal teams on trying to figure out their materials and all of these different things. Maybe if you have a bit of advice for some of the people watching right now.
Well, you know, the main thing is, I think that really made our application stand out was some of the way that we did use cases. And I think that it's really, you know, when the judges are having to look through so much material and strategies and other kind of can be somewhat drier material, who's the competitors, et cetera. When you use cases, you're telling a story. And the more clever that your use cases are, the more, you know, engaged the judges will be. And I have to say, my team actually wrote those use cases, and they did a fantastic job. And they're kind of funny and fun and engaging. And I think that applications don't give you a lot of room to do that. So whenever you can do that, I think that's really helpful.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, thanks for that specific insight, because I know that when it comes to some of the materials and things like that, it's like what I'm trying to say when it comes to those supporting materials really do matter, and there's UK use cases and things when it comes to specific examples just really help from those judges' perspectives. I just wanted to I also introduce, I think, Olivia as well. I'll just add the floor over to yourself.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be able to give advice from previous winners today. So for us, at Backlight, back in 2018, we were shortlisted in 2 categories. So we had a little bit of a training with submissions. And this past year in 2019, we were shortlisted in 4 different categories, including Innovative VR Company of the Year. And what we can take out from all of those is that the process and the organization with the VR awards is extremely simple and easy, and everything is made so that people who are submitting are stripped from any extra stress possible. And the idea between the VR awards is something at Backlight that we really, really like, having something to recognize the VR industry around the globe. That is specifically for us, is really, really fun and really, really great for this industry. It's also, when we talk about it, when we're getting ready to submit, we're thinking we're not in competition with the people that are submitting as well. It's more of a co-opetition, because the market is starting out right now. So everything that recognizes the amazing studios that submit amazing projects every year is just is great for everyone. The main things that we really, really like, apart from the amazing dinner, obviously, is there's a lot of follow-up events and a lot of advertising from the VR awards and AIXR. So that means a lot of support, and that's tons of opportunities for a studio like us to maximize our online voice and to maximize our visibility, and that's worldwide, so it's extremely important for us. And the other thing I would say is that we were able to rely on the AIXR team. They're extremely reactive, super nice. They've been a great help to us when we were working on our submissions. Because the one thing when you're submitting a few projects at the same time, it can be very time consuming. And it's also kind of a stressful process. So it's really, really great to have a team behind it that we know is going to be here to help us answer our questions right away. So we really, really appreciate that from the AIXR team. It's also something we're really proud of. For this year, we won the VR Marketing of the Year award for something that we did for Oasis. And for one, it's an experience that was for a beverage brand that is not really well known outside of France. So for us to win something that is actually competing with people around the globe and winning with something that is very French is kind of something that we're very proud of. So the team was really, really happy when we heard that we'd won. And the other thing is that we submitted, most of our experiences that we submit are actually either rides or hyper reality experiences. So there's a lot of haptics in there. They're actual attractions, and the judges, they cannot see that, or they cannot necessarily experience it all the time. So we had to work on, in our submission, and to make sure that we were conveying all the sensations that you would get in trying Oasis through our case studies, but also through the submission itself. So that would be one tip that I would give, is making sure that you're working on your case studies, not only for the VR awards, but for your visibility as well, making sure that all the features, the amazing features that you're supposed to be living through VR, you're conveying those with other mediums, including video, because it's really hard to make sure that people understand that you're actually having a lot of fun in a ride where there's a dynamic seat, it moves, it vibrates, and that's also something that makes a VR experience great. So making sure that you're packaging your submission to convey all of that is really important. And there's also the fact that we were really proud of the category that we won, because we do work in marketing in VR, but we also work in LBVR. But that proved not only to us when we're actually like working all the time and not thinking about that we can actually make some pretty fun experiences for marketing as well, and we were really proud of that. And that leads me to another tip that I would give, is to make sure that you submit your project in the right category. So that sounds obvious, but error can occur. Some projects might be submitted and not win just because they didn't quite fit the category. So what I would say is, and that's been said before, but make sure that you consult all the people that worked on the projects. Let them know that you're going to be submitting it. Ask them if there are any details that could make a difference to tell about the development, the software itself, how the project, the VR experience was operated, where it was, because all of those people that actually worked on the project will have a different point of view on how to push it to win an award. That's really important. And then on top of that, make sure that there's one person who is in your organization in charge of the final submission, because we did a little bit of that in our first year submitting, where we had a few people working on different submissions for different projects. And it's better if you harmonize the tone of voice, and if you make sure that that there's one person that is gathering all the information and being the final person that validates the submission. Yeah, I think those would be the tips that I would give. And remember that the VR Awards team are extremely nice and they're very reactive, and that's really, really appreciated. So just rely on them if you have any question, and understand that not only winning but being shortlisted is a great way to be visible for a whole year afterwards, because, well, you're doing things like this, webinars, and you're also giving talks, and on social media, the VR Awards are extremely active as well. So yeah, there's only basically positive things coming out of making sure that you submit projects that need to be seen and recognized around the world.
No, that's great. Thank you for that insight. I think, in particular, I know you mentioned that there was some, I guess, additional activities and additional kind of follow-ups and things, that really helped you maximize that. Are you able to, I guess, talk about what some of those things were?
Well, yeah, I did. I did a talk at the VR Days where I was able to present Backlight, as well as, well, obviously some of our projects. I also did another talk in VR, which I can't recall the name right now. Obviously, it would happen now. But yeah, there are a few things where you're able to actually be visible and talk about either the projects that won or what your studio is doing right now, what your thoughts are on your particular activity. Like, say we work a lot for marketing, so we were able to give our thoughts on the industry to a lot of different people, and a lot of people that work in other studios around the globe. And that's really, for networking, that's great, because you get to meet people that you really don't have time at events, and you get to figure out what they think of the same industry that they're working in as you, and that's really important. But what I would say is the most interesting thing, and my head of communication is not here now, but she would say that as well, is it really helps us maximize our online presence, because when you're working on projects in VR, not always thinking of telling the world what you're actually doing, or making sure that every project gets to be seen by as many people as possible. So having those kind of milestones after you've won a VR award is reminding you and your team that you need to put forward that you won that, and that that project was great, and that what you're working on right now is even better, and that next year, watch out, because you're going to win another award, right?
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that insight. I think, like, yeah, some of the other things that we end up doing as well is like the Ort Space, like AMA series with
Right. This was it, AMA.
Yep, the AMA series. Yeah, with all of our kind of the dev teams and things like that, that always get some fantastic kind of interaction from various different kind of people as well. So yeah, that's a few key things. One thing that I wanted to, I guess, just bring to everyone's attention as well is that we do have Q&A. So if you wanted to ask any questions, now is your opportunity to ask them, as we will be going through those in just a few minutes. So get those questions in on the Q&A function, and we'll be able to answer those ones live. I know from previous webinars and from a few things that we do have questions that we get in, that perhaps it's just worthwhile me just going over. In particular for LBE type installations, it's in the past we've found, and I think Olivia, you probably touched on that a little bit in the fact that providing that the materials that is put together for it are kind of well established and work well, then it's not necessarily more beneficial for one company than over another to have judges there physically to be able to try it. While in an ideal world, it's fantastic if you can make that work, but in raw reality, from what we've seen in the past, from past data, it hasn't affected the chances of a nomination for an LBE installation, because our judges understand that it's difficult to be able to get to some of these locations in particular. It's where those kind of information and support materials come in handy the most, is probably for the LBE type companies. In addition to that, I know we're speaking with kind of past kind of finalists and also winners. There's been cases before where we've had a nomination through from the client and then also the agency. So that communication with the agency and also the client is important. Make sure you guys determine who is going to be nominated for what. I know, Olivia, you touched on this a little bit as well. When it comes to the right category, there has been cases in the past where our team will look through the nomination, the materials that have been nominated, and may make a decision to contact you saying that we feel that based on the materials you submitted, it might be better for a different category, and then we may work with you to transfer that over if you would like us to be able to do so. So we're quite flexible on that front. So I guess it's important for that. I see a few questions have come through. First one is probably best for me. Are the awards hosted by AIXR? Can we submit experiences that have been created for mixed reality too? So yes, they're hosted solely by the Academy as one of our kind of flagship initiatives that we do to be able to support industry growth. Given that we do cover extended reality, the VR award specifically is mainly just for virtual reality. There are alternative things that we are looking at as an academy to be able to support the growth of augmented reality as well, but the VR awards is specifically for VR at this point in time. I can see another question that's come through. Do reference designs count for the hardware category, and would you ever consider technology components as a category in the future? So we have essentially the components itself is a little bit more of a gray area, or a bit more of a difficulty, because it's hard to quantify sometimes the results and information from that. What we have had in the past is nominations for hardware, specifically from some companies that add on to an experience. So things like Tesla Suit, for example, for the actual, haptic side of things. We have had nominations from Qualcomm and different things. Really, if you have a specific thing on that, it may be best to contact our team directly, so that we can help you answer that question once we have a bit more details on the specific components and hardware on that, and if we feel it will directly correlate to that category. It may be, and this is a good piece of advice sometimes, it's always worthwhile if you feel that you've had a really fantastic project that has pushed some real huge boundaries, and we see this a lot, specifically with, I know with kind of Nonnie's experience as well. We not only get a nomination for the experience, but also for innovative company, because those two things can go hand in hand if the experience has really pushed some good boundaries. So whereas for this component side of things, if you feel that there isn't a specific category for that, then innovative company, based on how impactful that is to the industry, could be a good option for you. So there's another question here. Is there a fee that needs to be paid for registration for the VR Awards? And followed by that, there's another question. Is there a discount for charities? First one is, yes, there's a fee for all of our nominations. It goes directly into helping us actually administrate and host the entire show and give the support that we're able to give. It is, I believe, £179 plus VAT per nomination. We offer a 25% off discount for all charities and charity-related projects. And we also, additionally, for all AIXR members that are part of our academy, there is a free nomination provided for all of those that are able to submit under that as well. I see there's another question here. What specific supporting / bespoke materials embedded are preferred by judges? Just before I answer that one, I think maybe Olivia, I'll just pass that to you on, I guess, what were some of the bespoke materials that you guys added or felt were beneficial to include?
Yeah, well, I would say case studies are always a good thing to add. Videos, photos in game, and yeah, I think that would be it.
Right. Yeah, and I think from our perspective, what we've seen is, like I mentioned before, we've had some bespoke type things in where specifically if it's a experience or maybe a film or maybe if it's a project or even your company, and it can be hard to, I guess, explain in just simple words. Sometimes, it might be worthwhile if you have a particular thing that you want to dissect within your project that you felt was particularly innovative, for example, then it might be worthwhile you being able to webcast that and maybe, just voice over on that particular thing. I've seen that done before, and I see that judges do like that because it gives a bit of further explanation into what you do. Additionally, I know obviously this depends on your resources, and and this is not to go without saying that there are some applications that do phenomenally well that don't have any, maybe have one or two support materials and don't really have much on that because they've spent a lot of time on the content and it's really, really well presented. This is just, if you combine the two of them, then it's even better for you, but it's not to say that it's going to have to be a huge resource drain for you to begin with. I see that we have also another question here. What are the main differences between an experience and a game? That's a great one. I guess the main thing for us is that virtual reality is a very hard thing to describe and determine and break down, depending on how you look at it. A game for us is specifically something that was designed to be played as a game, something that people are going to experience just for the pure entertainment of wanting to to level up, win different programs, progress on different things like that. It can be anything from something small scale to large scale, and it works quite well. And experience is where it's kind of our catch-all category for the things that aren't that people don't want to define specifically as a game, or maybe don't want to define specifically as a film. Sometimes we have films and experiences can cross over on things. The key thing there is that, I'll give you an example of previous kind of nominations that go through that. Things like ILMX's Vader Immortal. Very, very specifically is they were very clear that this is not a game. It's more of a narrative experience that they wanted to be able to highlight. So it didn't really fall within a film per se. It didn't really fall within a game or in the traditional senses, but it was something that was designed to be experienced and interacted with. Likewise, with that as well, I'd say that things like tools and applications like Google Tilt Brush and things like that, they would fall within the remit of an experience, in the sense that it's not a game and it's not a film. It's something that is designed to be interacted with on that specific sense. Enterprise experience, I'd say, is probably like our catch-all for the tools and stuff that specifically relate to business, but don't specifically fall within healthcare or training, things like that. So take note of those things. My advice will always be, if you've had something really innovative, then consider not just the specific category, maybe enterprise, but also innovative company, because there's a kind of a double whammy on that front as well. I can see here, there's another question. Do finalists get press opportunities or just winners? Well, the main thing for us as well on that is the fact that all of our, like Olivia said, just making that finalist is a huge, huge stretch in its own. We get quite literally hundreds and hundreds of nominations that come through. And making it onto that finalist is an achievement in itself, because you've already battled against quite a lot of amazing experiences. So what we like to do is be able to extend the case study side of things to all of our finalists, because if you have made it to a finalist on that front, then we as an academy feel that obviously you're doing something right, and we want to be able to highlight the work that you're doing. So granted, winners will get more exposure on that front, but during the finalist stage, you will get a finalist badge that you can display. A good thing to note is, if we look at what our previous winners and finalists do, if you are to go onto the HTC website right now to buy a Vive Pro, which was winner of our hardware in previous years, you will see the VR Awards badge on that, straight on the website. So clear things to note on that is that, whether you're a finalist or winner, you have materials to be able to display to maximize the opportunity as well. Well, I think that's covered. If anyone doesn't have any more questions, I'll maybe leave a few more minutes or so for that. I don't know if, Olivia, you have anything else you wanted to add at all, or based on what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I would just say I agree that being a finalist is already an achievement in itself, and I would say only for the opportunity to be shortlisted, you would really it would be worth it to go through the process of submitting a project, because yeah, it's been, for us, we've been shortlisted on other categories, and we've been able to have visibility on that and to communicate around it, and it's really prestigious. So if you get to there at the very least, that's great for your studio.
Sorry, there you go. Thanks for that insight. Yeah, I mean, I would just like to end this with just some closing thoughts, I guess. Just from our point of view, we love to be able to see the extent of the kind of projects that come through. This year we'll be introducing public voting for category of game, because we had an internal discussion with our board and different people, and we were like, we want to be able to allow some of those experiences to be able to have some additional kind of exposure on that front. One clear thing to note, for anything that's public voting related, that will only count for a small percentage of the final overall score. Expert opinions from our judges will count as a final determiner and decider on that. A few closing thoughts for everyone involved here. When it comes to the night of the awards, it really is about that that celebration. We're not an expo, we're not a conference. There's lots of those already. You can go and explore those. For us, it's all about how can we celebrate and achieve the achievements that you have been kind of producing. So I want you to just think about that and bear that in mind moving forward. And just as a closing thing, and this isn't specifically related to the VR awards or anything like that, but the Academy has also released a COVID-19 resource and support center for any related financial information and support that we're able to provide you. We've also set up a crisis support phone line, which is manned by our staff, where we'll be able to take any phone calls and any advice related to COVID-19 free of charge for anyone that just needs to talk. So that's just a side note, separate from the awards. Hopefully that this has proved kind of useful for you today. I'd just like to thank our panelists for being involved in discussions here. Yeah, aside from that, I wish everyone the best of luck moving forward.